Hey everyone, Dr. Alex Ritza here, and welcome to another episode of the Better Ever After podcast. Whether you're joining us on the podcast or Instagram or Facebook, thank you for tuning in. Today I want to bring some value to you guys to change your mindset and how you think about your health, because ultimately the strategy that we use, the beliefs that we have, and our mindset is going to determine how successful we're going to be with our health. And also make sure that we're going in the right direction and that our efforts are being put to good use. So we're going to be talking about a study that was done in the US that's very much applicable to Canada, and it's going to be applicable to you. And with that study, we're going to be talking about the health behaviors that are known to extend life. And these are very basic things. And then we're going to talk about at the end what I think is a gold standard day to give you guys a template for what your day should look like to check off most, if not all, of the boxes of what would be the healthiest or a very, very healthy day, healthiest day possible. So let's talk about the study. So it was done by the CDC, Center for Disease Control in the States, titled Clustering of 5 Health-Related Behaviors for Chronic Disease Prevention Among Adults, United States, 2013. So what the researchers did, they did telephone interviews and verbal feedback from thousands and thousands and thousands of our participants, trying to figure out if or how many people observed certain health behaviors. And so the 5 health behaviors that they asked about that we know are associated with decreasing your chance of dying or decreasing your chance of mortality were not smoking, getting a sufficient amount of sleep, which they said 7 hours in a 24-hour period, not excessive drinking, which they said was less than 5 servings of alcohol in one sitting, which I thought was fairly generous and kind of fun. Let's consider that less though for optimal health. Meeting the aerobic physical activity guidelines, so that was 150 minutes a week of moderate intensity, 75 of intense, or some combination of the two. And then the last thing was maintaining a healthy body mass index. So we know the BMI is can be a very skewed measure of health, but what they did with this study is they looked at how many people said yes to these different criteria, and took a measurement of how many people said 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I found the results were fairly shocking. So the number of people that said none of these was only 1.4%. So it was 80% of people, 81.6% said at least they're doing one of these things. But they found that only 6.3% of people in the States are doing these 5 big, simple, fundamental things for one's health. So only 6% of the population is getting enough exercise, getting enough sleep, not smoking, not binge drinking, and has a healthy weight, which I found kind of disturbing. And the reason I found it disturbing is that in the office, I get a lot of questions about very specific or very minute strategies to help improve someone's health. We're talking about things like intermittent fasting or CrossFit or other trendy things that overall are going to help make you healthy. But often when somebody's asking me about these things, they're not doing either these big 5 things or meeting some of the other fundamental requirements of health. And the analogy that I want to draw upon is something called the rock, gravel, sand analogy, where if you're trying to fill up a glass, it's going to take a lot of work, a lot of pebbles or a lot of grains of sand to fill it up. And so typically you would fill it up with some rocks, and then you fill up the smaller spaces with gravel, and then you fill up the rest of it with sand. And in our analogy, the rocks, those are the fundamental health principles. And so in this study, there were the 5 things that we talked about. And in our health curriculum in the office, those big rocks are movement, nutrition, recovery, and a healthy spine and nervous system, which we help people with in the office. The things, the gravel and the sand, those are more of the minute details and the more specific strategies that you might use to get your glass or your health as close to 100% as possible. Because ultimately you can only fill the glass so much with the big rocks, the big strategies, and then you take on some less fundamental or principled things, like maybe you're doing intermittent fasting or you're doing CrossFit. Those are the pebbles, sorry, those are the gravel, and then the small grains of sand are the very specific things that you might do with your health to optimize things as much as possible. And what I'm going to hopefully convince you of today is that when you are making a decision about your health in terms of investing time or money, make sure, please, that you are doing the 5 things that the CDC talked about, and you are meeting the other fundamental requirements of health that your body needs to be healthy in terms of nutrition, movement, recovery, and making sure that your spine and your nervous system works properly. Because ultimately, if you're spending a lot of time, a lot of money, and a lot of energy on just one small domain, whether it's nutrition, whether it's movement, whether it's meditation, or recovery, if you're just spending all your time and energy, you're not going to be able to fill up the glass. You got to make sure the rocks are in there so you are hitting the basic principles, the basic requirements, and when you are doing those 5 things that the CDC talked about, when you're doing the other big principles that we're going to talk about in a second, then you can focus your energy and your efforts on the small details. So when somebody asks me about one of those small detail things, I'm of course going to give them the answer, and if it's going to help them, I'm going to encourage them to do it. But I'm also going to make sure that if they are going to spend all this time and energy on one particular domain, they're also going to make sure that they've got a sleep schedule and a sleep routine, that they're also moving about their office as much as humanly possible, so they're meeting the movement requirements of health and spending some time on their mobility program, and also making sure that we are focusing on putting good, nutritious food and sticking to the basics of our fundamental fuel curriculum, or just the basics of what we know from nutrition. Eat lots of vegetables, eat good quality sources of protein and fat, don't overeat, make sure that you're not consuming a ton of excess calories, some of those basic things. And so what I'm hoping is going to be useful now is I'm going to talk about what I think looks like a fairly gold standard day from morning until night that's going to hit the 5 things the CDC talked about and is going to hit most of the points from our movement, nutrition, recovery curriculums, okay? So what we know when we start off, we probably want to start off the morning fairly early. 6 o'clock, 5:45, 6:30, it's going to depend on you. We're going to start off the morning early because we're going to get our workout early in the morning, or get movement straight away when we start off our day. Research shows that when you start the day with activity, start the day with movement, it's going to be better for your brain, it's going to be better for your mental health, and it's also going to be better for your physical health in general, the fact that you're moving, but also establishing a proper sleep schedule. So we wake up and we're going to start off our day with hopefully some mobility work. We're going to start off with either add in some strength training or some cardiovascular training, and we're doing that somewhere between 30 and 60 minutes. Another important part of our morning is going to be that we are going to take some time to prepare ourselves for the day. Now, this means that we're probably going to take some time to do some strategic planning for our day. This might mean doing some journaling. This might mean having a schedule. And in terms of that schedule, it's going to make sure that it is not too busy, so we have some time to rest, recover, and relax. So we've woken up, we've started our day with some movement. You probably want to have something to eat. Basic principle, some vegetables, good source of protein, and make sure that it is delicious. And then, if you are focusing on the minute details, if you want to do some intermittent fasting and wait till lunch, be my guest. I like to have breakfast in the morning because I like to eat and I get hungry. So we've woken up, we've done our exercise, we've probably done some meditation or some journaling, or we've done some planning for the day, put some good food in our body, or we're waiting till lunch, and then we head out the door. On our way to work, hopefully we are walking or we are cycling, because we are going to be aiming to get 10,000 steps in a day to meet the minimum requirements for movement. When you get to work, you're going to be sitting at your office working away, and we're going to be trying to move as much as possible so that every 15 or 20 minutes we're moving throughout the day, so we're not going to get a chronic repetitive strain injury, we're not going to put stress on our spine, we're not going to put stress on our nervous system. While you're at work, obviously it's good if your stress level is relatively low, and if it's not, something that you want to address by making sure that you're taking some time to breathe, taking some breaks so that you are delaying or interrupting that fight or flight response, or trying some meditation. In terms of lunch, we get there, again, we've moved all morning, we want to eat vegetables, good source of protein, add on some healthy fats, whatever that might be depending on your needs on that particular day. At lunch, you're also going to want to take some time so you stop working, you spend some time socializing or some time enjoying the company of others. We know from the research that one's connection in our society or one's connection in a social group is really, really important for our long-term mortality, so we don't die early, and reducing morbidity, because more social cohesion produces better health. Something that I'm a huge proponent of for lunchtime is taking a nap or doing some meditation. Being a chiropractor, I have access to a nap room, sleep on chiropractic bed sometimes. Really important to interrupt the day because the body is not designed to go straight from 9 to 5 without a break. Some meditation for 10 to 15 minutes, taking a nap, taking a walk by yourself, not thinking or doing too much, or staring at a painted wall so your brain can get a break. Your morning, of course, should look a lot, or sorry, your afternoon should, of course, look a lot like your morning. Lots of movement at your desk, trying to minimize the amount of stress as much as possible. And then when we get into the evening, hopefully you've already got your workout in, but if you don't, it's a fine time to do it. It's just not as optimal as the morning. Your evening meal, again, we're looking for lots of vegetables, good source of protein, good source of fat, and some higher quality carbohydrates from vegetables or some sort of lentil. And then, again, this is a really important time of the night. Make some social connection, which sounds extremely robotic when I say it. Have some fun, do something you enjoy, that you're passionate about, that you can look forward to all day, and then with lots of time between that and sleep, start a sleep routine. The sleep routine's goal is to calm your body and calm your mind so that when you go to sleep, just like a professional athlete prepares for an event, your body and your mind are ready to execute on that, and you are getting somewhere between 7 and 9 hours of sleep. So guys, that's what a good day should look like. That stress level should be fairly low. Hopefully it's a less than a 5. And saying it out loud sounds easy. Of course I understand it's very tough to execute on, and it's tough to do, and it requires, means and privilege in some cases, but that would be the gold standard. If you can't do all those steps, make sure that you are hitting the big rocks. Make sure you're doing those 5 things the CDC talked about, and also make sure you're taking time for movement, good nutrition, recovery, and if your stress is really high, trying to make sure your nervous system functions properly by allowing for some recovery time with some meditation or some rest, or checking in with your local chiropractor to help that nervous system work properly. Guys, I'm sure I missed something of what that ideal day should look like. I went over it kind of quick. If you have any questions, I'm always available by email, Facebook, Instagram. Send me a message. I'm happy to help as much as I can with your case. If there is an issue that you're looking to discuss with us, that's why we book a complimentary case review. We can sit down and discuss it more in person. I really am grateful that you guys tuned in, listened. I hope this was helpful, and I'll see you in a couple weeks' time. Bye, guys.